They thought he'd go unclaimed until the Empress shocked them all with one word: mine. The chains bit into Jarek Stone's wrists as another captive was led from the arena floor. He didn't bother watching anymore. 3 hours in the Talveen heat had taught him that keeping his head down just made the wait longer, and he'd never been good at submission. The grand arena stretched above him in impossible architecture, all sweeping curves and bioluminescent panels pulsing with the crowd's excitement. Thousands of Talveen packed the tiered seats, their pale skin marked with clan patterns. They'd come to watch their nobles select prizes from the conquered. Jarek flexed his fingers, testing the restraints out of habit. Military-grade energy cuffs, probably worth more than everything he'd owned before the war, before Earth lost, before he'd ended up here, sitting in the dirt while aliens decided his fate. "The human's still here," someone said in trade standard. 2 Talveen guards stood nearby, their armor gleaming. "No one wants him," the other replied. "Humans are fragile, short-lived. What's the point?" They weren't wrong. He'd watched 17 others selected in the past hour, species he'd never heard of, from worlds whose names he couldn't pronounce. But not him. Never him. The arena floor continued to empty. One by one they left, and Jarek remained. The sun had shifted considerably when movement rippled through the crowd. Not casual interest, but something that straightened spines and cut conversations mid-word. Jarek lifted his head. The Empress entered through the gate of ascension, and the arena fell silent. He'd seen her in broadcasts, but distance had softened her. Nothing softened her now. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, wrapped in armor that looked grown rather than forged. Red and white patterns marked her exposed skin in sharp contrast to her pallor, natural coloring that shifted as she moved. Her dark hair fell past her shoulders, and her eyes swept the arena with a hunter's focus. She'd never attended a claiming ceremony, everyone knew that. The Empress who rejected all suitors, who'd ruled for 30 years without a consort. Jarek's pulse kicked up despite himself. Sekara descended the steps with liquid grace. The remaining captives shrank back, all except Jarek, who couldn't look away. She passed the others without a glance, walked straight to him and stopped. Up close, she was striking, angular face, high cheekbones, a mouth that rarely smiled. The patterns on her skin continued down her neck, disappearing beneath her armor. Her scent hit him, something spiced and foreign that made his instincts war between attraction and alarm. She circled him slowly. He felt her gaze catalog every scar, every old break, every mark 2 decades of warfare had left. He kept his head up, meeting her eyes. "You do not lower your gaze," she said. Her voice was low, almost a purr. "No." "Why not?" "Haven't found a reason to yet." Her head tilted slightly. She reached out, fingers tracing the scar from his temple to his jaw. Her touch was cool, clinical. "This one?" she asked. "Shrapnel, Kandahar Station." "And this?" Her hand moved to his shoulder where plasma had left tissue ridged. Boarding action didn't duck fast enough. "You have many scars." "I've had a long career." Something flickered across her face. She completed her circuit and stood before him again, close enough that he could feel heat radiating from her armored form. The silence stretched. Jarek's heart hammered, and he couldn't identify why. Fear seemed too simple. So did anticipation. Sekara's eyes locked with his, and the arena vanished. There was only her, studying him with intensity that felt like it reached past his skin. She spoke one word. The arena erupted. The cuffs around his wrists flared blue, then shifted to crimson. Light burst from the floor beneath him, tracing patterns that spiraled outward. Ancient symbols materialized between them, rotating slowly. "What?" he started. "The claiming protocol. A Talveen in robes appeared, his face pale. 'Your Majesty, you've invoked the ancient rite. This is binding.' 'I am aware, Eston.' Guards rushed forward, forming a protective circle around them. "She can't claim a human," someone shouted. "Abomination." Sekara ignored them. She touched the crimson light connecting Jarek's cuffs to the ground. The chains dissolved into particles. "Stand," she commanded. Jarek stood, legs uncertain after hours of kneeling. He was tall for a human, but she still had inches on him. The symbols continued rotating between them. "You're the Empress," he said slowly. Yes. And you just claimed me. Yes. Using some kind of ancient binding protocol. Her mouth curved slightly. You understand quickly. Good. What does this make me? Sekara turned, her hand closing around his wrist. The symbols followed as she began walking, guards falling into formation. Imperial Consort, she said, the second most powerful person in the Talveen Empire. Congratulations, Jarek Stone, you're no longer unclaimed. And the second most hunted, Eston added quietly. The last thing Jarek saw was an ancient Talveen in the High Council box, his face twisted with rage. The gate sealed behind them. The transport climbed through Talveen Prime's atmosphere. Jarek watched the city sprawl beneath them, spires like coral growths, gardens defying gravity, architecture that seemed alive. First time seeing the capital from this angle? Sekara asked. She sat across from him, still in armor. 2 guards flanked the entrance. Last time I was here, I was trying to blow it up, Jarek said. I remember, the human strike team that made it within 3 kilometers of the Imperial Palace. You led it. We lost everyone. Not everyone, she leaned forward. If I gave you a weapon right now, would you use it on me? He considered lying, but something in her expression told him she'd know. Depends on whether I thought I could win. She smiled, transforming her face from severe to striking. Good, I have no use for liars or fools, and I need you to understand what you've just become. She gestured, and a holographic display materialized. The Empire spans 47 systems. At the top sits the Empress, me. Directly beside her sits the Imperial Consort. That's you now. You have access to state secrets, command authority, the right to sit in council sessions. You're untouchable by law. And in practice? In practice, you're the most threatened person in the Empire. The High Council sees you as contamination. Half the military views you as the enemy. Every noble with ambitions sees you as a weakness. The transport banked, revealing the Imperial Palace. So why claim me? Jarek asked. If it causes this much trouble, why risk it? Sekara was quiet for a long moment. Because my people are dying, she said, and you're the only chance we have to survive. They docked at a private platform. Guards waited, at least 20, all armed, eyes tracking Jarek with hostility. A female Talveen whose darker armor marked her as captain stepped forward. Her face was scarred, one eye replaced with a cybernetic implant. Captain Rin, status? Sekara asked. The High Council has requested an emergency session, Your Majesty. Chancellor Grimald demands your presence. 3 assassination contracts have been posted, all targeting the human. That was fast, Jarek muttered. Double the palace guard, Sekara commanded. Anyone who attempts those contracts forfeits their life and their bloodlines. They moved through corridors that seemed to breathe. Servants pressed themselves aside, eyes widening at Jarek. The Imperial wing occupied the palace's highest levels. Sekara's chambers were vast, dominated by windows. Weapons lined one wall. Wait here, Sekara commanded, disappearing through a doorway. Jarek examined the weapons. One curved sword drew his eye, its blade etched with patterns matching Sekara's skin. That was my mother's, Sekara said, returning in robes that moved like water. She unified the 7 clans and established the Empire. She died defending the throne when I was 12. I'm sorry. Don't be. She died with honor. She moved to a table with data tablets. Now let me explain why I really claimed you. Sit. Jarek sat. The Talveen Empire is dying, Sekara began. For 70 years, our birth rate has been declining. Our genetics have become too perfect. 90% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. Of the survivors, half die in infancy. We're breeding ourselves into extinction. You can't reproduce. Human DNA is chaotic, adaptable. 5 years ago, my scientists discovered human genetic material might provide the variation we need, but it requires a bonding, achievable only through ancient protocols. Understanding hit him. You need me to save your species. I need you to give me an heir that will survive. That's why I claimed you. Your genetic markers suggest rare adaptability, proven survival instincts, tactical intelligence, resilience tested in combat. You're the best chance we have. Her eyes met his. You can't. The claim is binding. The ceremony happens in 3 days regardless. Jarek stood crossing to her. He stopped close enough to feel heat from her body. Let me make something clear, he said quietly. I don't care about your empire or your genetic crisis. You want cooperation? Earn it. Then what do you want? Respect, answers, and a reason why I should help the people who destroyed my world. Something shifted in her expression. She reached up, fingers tracing his scar. This time the touch felt different. You're not what I expected, she said. Neither are you. Alarms screamed through the palace. Imperial wing breach, assassins in the east corridor. Sekara moved instantly, grabbing a blade. Jarek was at the door. Stay behind me, she commanded. Not a chance. The door burst open and 4 figures in combat suits poured through. Sekara's blade sang, and the first attacker's head separated. Jarek dove for the falling weapon, rolled, came up firing. The blast went wide but bought Sekara the second she needed. She took down the second assassin. The third got a shot off that missed by centimeters. Jarek fired again, finding his mark. The fourth hesitated. Sekara's blade found the gap in his armor. Silence fell. You fight well, Sekara said. You're not bad yourself. Their eyes met across the bodies. Whatever else surrounded them, they'd just fought together and survived. Rin burst in with guards. The wing is secure, Your Majesty, but the assassins wore council guard uniforms. This came from inside. Sekara's jaw tightened. Send word to Chancellor Grimald. Tell him we'll attend his session. She extended the weapon to Jarek. Keep this. He took it. When he looked up, Sekara was watching him. 3 days until the bonding ceremony, she said quietly. Help me survive them, and I'll give you every answer. Deal? Deal, he said. But when this is over, I want the whole truth. You'll get it, she held out her hand. Partners? He took it, partners. The High Council chamber was carved from black stone. Tiered seats rose in concentric rings. At the center, 2 seats sat isolated. Sekara entered in formal armor. Jarek followed. Council members rose, eyes tracking him with hostility. Chancellor Grimald stood at the highest tier. He was ancient, skin almost translucent, clan markings faded to silver. Your Majesty, you called this session to challenge my claim, Sekara said. Grimald gestured and a holographic display materialized. The claiming protocol was designed for Talveen nobles, not for cross-species contamination. Choose your words carefully, Chancellor. The law is clear. A claimed consort must demonstrate value. And how do you measure worth? Sekara stood. By the 47 warriors he killed during his raid? By his survival? Or by the fact that he saved my life when your assassins breached the Imperial wing? Murmurs rippled through the council. They wore council guard uniforms. Someone knew something. It does not address the core issue. The human is genetically incompatible. Viable, Sekara descended the steps. You're terrified of what it means if I succeed. She moved through the chamber. For decades, you've controlled genetic matching. You decide which bloodlines mix. You've created a system where the Council, not the Empress, controls our future. We maintain genetic purity, a council member interjected. The standards that are killing us. Sekara stopped at the center. Terith, your house has had 2 successful births out of 37 pregnancies. Vrex, 1 child in 15 years. Grimald, your bloodline has produced no viable offspring in 2 generations. We're dying, and you're more concerned about purity than survival. Because survival means nothing if we lose what makes us Talveen, Grimald said. Limited? Jarek spoke, standing. Your forces outnumbered us 100 to 1. Superior technology, better weapons, orbital superiority, and it took you 3 years to break Earth. 3 years of humans making you bleed for every meter. You lost, Grimald said. We survived long enough to be remembered. Sekara pulled up another display showing DNA sequences. 5 years ago, I commissioned secret research. My scientists studied human DNA for compatibility. The display shifted, showing 2 helixes merging. Human genetic material doesn't just work with ours, Sekara continued. It enhances it. The chaos you see as weakness, it's variability we need. Their shorter lifespans mean faster adaptation. You're asking us to gamble the Empire on theory, Grimald said. I'm telling you I'm going to prove it. The bonding ceremony happens in 3 days. And if it fails, then I'll step down from the throne. The chamber erupted. Jarek watched Sekara stand still in the chaos. She'd just bet her throne on him. Grimald raised his hand and silence returned. You would truly step down? I would. Then I propose an addition. If you succeed, the Council acknowledges the human as legitimate Imperial Consort. But if you fail, not only do you step down, but the human faces trial for war crimes. No, Jarek said. But Sekara was already nodding. Agreed. Your Majesty. I said agreed, Chancellor. 3 days, she turned to Jarek. Trust me. Behind the ice, he saw something that looked like fear. Fine, he said quietly. 3 days. In the corridor outside, Sekara stopped, shoulders dropping slightly. You shouldn't have agreed, Jarek said. I had no choice, at least now we have terms. Why does this matter so much? Beyond saving your species, why me? She turned, and the mask slipped. Because I've been watching you for 8 months, since before the prisoner camp. I saw you take a plasma round meant for your subordinate. I saw you stand in front of a dreadnought rather than abandon your wounded. She stepped closer. I saw someone who valued life over victory, and I realized maybe the person I need isn't the strongest or most perfectly designed. Maybe I need someone who knows what it means to fight for something worth saving. The admission hung between them. 3 days, Jarek said softly, and you'll tell me everything. Everything, she agreed, starting with why the bonding ceremony might kill us both. The second assassination attempt came at dawn. Jarek woke to displaced air and rolled as blasts scorched where his head had been. He came up firing. The shot illuminated 2 figures dropping from vents. Sekara was there, blade finding the first attacker's throat. Jarek's second shot caught the other center mass. 3rd time in 2 days, Jarek said. The ceremony is tomorrow. Sekara turned to him. Get dressed. There's something you need to see. They descended through older palace sections. The corridors grew ancient, technology giving way to carved stone. Guards fell away until only Rin remained, and eventually even she stopped at a sealed door. The ritual chamber is for the bonded alone, the captain said. Sekara placed her palm against the door. It opened. Beyond lay a chamber with circular walls covered in shifting symbols surrounding a raised platform. Channels carved into the floor were stained dark. This is where it happens, Sekara said, where we'll either succeed or die trying. Die? Jarek circled the platform. Explain. The bonding is a genetic merge at the cellular level. Our DNA literally combines. For Talveen bonding with Talveen, it's dangerous but survivable. For cross-species bonding, she gestured at the channels. Those drain away the bodies when the merge fails. How often does it fail? 87% of cross-species attempts result in death. And you waited until now to mention it? Would it have changed anything? You could have told me the odds. The odds don't matter. She moved to the platform's edge. I've spent 5 years studying this. You're compatible, Jarek, but compatibility doesn't guarantee survival. It just makes it possible. What happens during the merge? Our genetic material combines. If successful, you'll gain Talveen traits, enhanced strength, longer lifespan, faster healing. I'll gain human adaptability. We'll share sensory perceptions, possibly thoughts. The bond is permanent. And if it's not successful? Your body rejects the markers and shuts down, or mine rejects yours. Death occurs within minutes. Jarek stared at the channels. Why are you so certain it will work? Because it has to. She turned, vulnerable for the first time. I've ruled for 30 years watching my people fade. I'm tired of watching us die. She reached up, fingers tracing his scar with gentleness. You asked why you. The truth is, I didn't choose you just for genetics. I chose you because when I watched you fight, when I saw you refuse to break, I felt something I haven't felt in decades. What? Hope. The word hung between them, and Jarek felt something shift in his chest. I need to know something, he said quietly. Is this all strategy, or is there something else? I told myself it was strategy. I convinced myself everything I felt was recognition of a solution, but I've never been good at lying to myself. What are you saying? I'm saying that somewhere between watching you fight and claiming you, strategy became something more. The thought of you dying tomorrow terrifies me in ways that have nothing to do with genetic research. She stepped closer. Maybe I chose you because some part of me recognized you as someone worth fighting for. Jarek's hand found her waist. If we survive, what happens then? Then we prove cooperation is possible. We create an heir representing both our peoples. We rebuild the empire, she tilted her head, and we figure out what this thing between us is. He pulled her closer. If something goes wrong tomorrow, I want you to know I don't regret this. I came here expecting to die unclaimed. Instead, I got to fight beside an empress, got to see behind your walls. That's worth something. Her forehead rested against his. It won't fail. I won't let it. They stood like that, breathing the same air in the chamber where they would either forge something new or die trying. We should rest. Tomorrow will test us. In her chambers that night, they prepared for what might be their last night. Jarek watched her move through the space, memorizing details. You're staring, she said. Just making sure I remember this. She turned, expression fierce. Tomorrow will work. It has to. Because the Empire needs it? Because I need it. She closed the distance, her hand finding his. Sleep. Tomorrow we make history or we die trying. He lay down, and after hesitation, Sekara joined him. They didn't speak. The presence was enough, the knowledge that whatever came, they wouldn't face it alone. The ritual chamber filled with witnesses as the twin suns reached zenith. The High Council occupied the upper tiers. Chancellor Grimald sat highest. Rin and her guards formed a protective ring. Jarek descended alongside Sekara. She wore ceremonial robes leaving her arms bare. He wore similar garments in human style. You look good, she murmured. I look like I'm about to be sacrificed. That's not inaccurate. They reached the platform. We begin, Sekara announced. She turned to face him, and he saw the fear she'd hidden. He took her hands, and her fingers tightened. The bonding requires physical contact throughout, she said quietly. It will hurt. Don't let go. She raised her voice. Witnesses of the High Council, you are here to observe the completion of the claiming protocol. What is bound here cannot be undone. Let the bonding begin. She stepped onto the platform, pulling him up. The moment his feet touched stone, symbols blazed to life, white-hot gold that made his eyes water. The light traveled through channels, surrounding them in radiance. Sekara pulled him closer until they were chest to chest. Whatever happens, look at me, focus on me. The light intensified and then pain hit. It felt like his blood was boiling, every cell at war with itself. Jarek's back arched, but Sekara's hands held his, her eyes locked on his face. Stay with me, she commanded. He could feel something foreign invading, Talveen genetic material trying to overwrite what made him human. His body rejected it violently. Blood streamed from his nose, his vision blurred. Then Sekara gasped, her own struggle reflected in her face. Don't let go, she gritted out. Never. The pain escalated beyond anything he'd experienced. Cellular agony, his body tearing apart and rebuilding. He could feel Talveen's strength flooding his muscles, bones' density increasing. Through the haze, he became aware of Sekara's thoughts bleeding into his. Not words, but emotions, her determination, her fear, her hope, and underneath something else. She wanted this, wanted him, not as political solution, but as a partner. The admission was raw. His own emotions flooded into her, his respect, his admiration, his understanding, and beneath the strategy, something that had been building since she'd first circled him. The merge completed with a rush that felt like every atom rearranging. The pain cut off abruptly. Jarek stumbled and Sekara caught him, or he caught her. They stood together, breathing hard, still alive. The golden light faded. Every council member was on their feet. Even Grimald looked stunned. It worked, Eston breathed. By the ancestors, it actually worked. Jarek became aware of changes. He felt stronger, senses sharper, and there in the back of his mind he could feel Sekara. Not her thoughts exactly, but her presence. He looked at her and saw her pupils dilated. She touched his face and he felt her wonder through the bond. Your eyes, she said, they've changed. There's gold in them now. He looked at her arms and saw the clan patterns had shifted slightly, threaded with new colors. So have yours, he said. They turned to face the council together, still holding hands. The bonding is complete, the merge successful. Cross-species genetic integration is not only possible but viable. The human is now my bonded consort with all rights and protections. Does anyone wish to challenge this? Silence. Then someone began to clap, slowly at first, then building. Others joined. Even some hostile members recognized what they'd witnessed. History being made. Grimald finally found his voice. The council acknowledges the bonding. Jarek Stone is recognized as Imperial Consort. We will support the genetic research as agreed. Good. Sekara descended from the platform. They moved through the chamber with guards falling in around them. In the corridor outside, Sekara finally let her composure crack. She leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I will be." She looked up at him, exhaustion mixed with triumph. "We did it, Jarek." "We survived. Making it work is another thing." "I know, but we have time now." Over the following hours, they dealt with council members seeking favor, with scientists eager to study the results, with military officials adjusting. Through it all, they remained side by side. As evening fell, they finally returned to her chambers, alone for the first time since the ceremony. "So," Jarek said, watching the city lights, "we saved your species, proved your theory, made history." "We did." Sekara moved to stand beside him. "Now comes the harder part." "What's that?" "Figuring out what we are to each other. Beyond politics, beyond genetics." She turned to face him. "The bond lets me feel what you feel. I know the attraction is real, but I don't know what happens next." "Neither do I." He reached up, fingers tracing the new patterns on her arm. "But we have time to figure it out. Years, decades if the lifespan extension works." "A lifetime," she agreed softly. He pulled her close and she came willingly. No pretense now, no walls, just two people who'd fought together, survived together, and found something worth keeping. The kiss, when it came, was inevitable. Her lips were cool against his, but the heat that built had nothing to do with temperature. His hands found the fastenings of her robes and she didn't stop him. Instead, her own fingers worked at his garments with urgency. They made it to the sleeping platform, barely. The robes fell away, and Jarek got his first real look at her. The clan patterns continued down her entire body. She was all lean muscle and dangerous curves, and when she pulled him down to her, he forgot about empires and everything except the woman beneath him. "Jarek," she breathed against his ear. He kissed her throat, her collarbone, following the patterns down. She arched beneath him, her nails dragging across his shoulders. Through the bond, he could feel her desire mixing with his own. When he finally entered her, they both gasped. The bond flared bright, and suddenly he could feel everything she felt. It was overwhelming and perfect. "Don't stop," she commanded. They moved together with the same coordination they'd shown in combat, each instinctively knowing what the other needed. When she rolled them so she was on top, he let her take control, watching her move above him. The patterns on her skin seemed to glow. Her climax hit like a shockwave through the bond, triggering his own. They clung to each other as pleasure rolled through them both, doubled and reflected. After they lay tangled together, Sekara's head rested on his chest. He could feel her contentment through the bond. "That was," she started. "Yeah," he agreed. She lifted her head to look at him, softness in her expression. "You know what this means, don't you? If the bonding worked this completely, we might actually have a chance at creating an heir that survives." "More than that," her hand stilled, "we might have a chance at creating a future worth living in." Jarek stroked her hair, feeling the bond settle into something warm and steady. "So what happens now?" "Now we prove them wrong." She tilted her head to look at him. "We show them that strength doesn't come from purity, but from diversity, and we do it together." "Together," he agreed. "Partners." "Partners." She kissed him again, slower this time. "And maybe something more than that." "Maybe," he said against her lips. "We've got time to figure it out." They made love again, slower, exploratory, and tender. When they finally fell asleep, it was wrapped around each other, the bond humming contentedly. 3 months later, Sekara stood before the High Council with Jarek at her side. "I'm pregnant," she said simply. "The genetic tests confirm the embryo is viable, healthy, and represents a successful merge of Talveen and human DNA." The chamber erupted, but this time it wasn't all hostile. Some of the younger council members looked excited. Chancellor Grimald rose slowly. "Your Majesty, if this child survives to term..." "Then we open the genetic program to volunteers," Sekara finished. "Humans who are willing, Talveen who choose to participate. We save our species by evolving it." Over the following months, as Sekara's pregnancy progressed, changes spread through the Empire. The first volunteers stepped forward. Not all bonding succeeded, but enough did, enough to give hope. Jarek adjusted to his role as Imperial Consort, learning Talveen politics while maintaining the honesty that had attracted Sekara. He sat in council sessions, cast votes, and slowly earned respect. And through it all, the bond with Sekara deepened. They learned to communicate through it, to share emotions across distance. They learned what it meant to be truly partnered. The assassination attempts continued, but less frequently. The council had grudgingly accepted the new reality. When Sekara went into labor, Jarek was there, holding her hand through every contraction. The bond let him feel echoes of her pain. Their daughter was born at dawn, as the twin suns rose. She had Sekara's pale skin marked with clan patterns, but the patterns were new, red and white threaded through with colors that had never been seen on a Talveen. She had Jarek's eyes, but with flecks of gold. She was perfect. "She's beautiful," Jarek breathed, cradling the tiny life they'd created. "She's hope," Sekara corrected. "She's proof that we were right." They named her Alara, after Sekara's mother and an earth goddess, the child who would bridge two worlds, the heir to an empire being rebuilt. As Jarek looked down at his daughter, then over at Sekara, he thought about the arena months ago, about sitting in chains, certain he would die unwanted. He'd thought he'd go unclaimed. They all had. They'd been wrong. Sekara had shocked them all with one word: mine. And in claiming him, she'd saved not just her species, but given him something he'd never expected: a home, a purpose, a family, a future worth fighting for. He leaned down and kissed Sekara's forehead. Their daughter nestled between them, and felt the bond pulse with contentment and love. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For choosing me, for seeing something worth saving when everyone else saw an enemy." She reached up and cupped his face. "I didn't save you, Jarek. We saved each other." And looking at the life they'd built together, at the child they'd created, at the empire they were reshaping, he knew she was right. They'd saved each other, and in doing so, they'd saved everything.